This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by
Next 1000.
It'll take time to watch.
A Washington Post reporter chats up liberty activists in New Hampshire. This is how most of our interactions with the press have looked. Cordial, comfortable. And in most cases, this one included, the reporters get the relevant facts straight. But other times you'll bump into situations and reporters like this.
I don't want to be on camera.
This was also in Concord, and the reporter seems to be acting like a bureaucrat. Actually, a little worse than the average bureaucrat in this case. Of course, we've all had experiences where journalists get the facts blatantly wrong or just pretend that a liberty issue doesn't exist. Usually they're at their worst when they provide fawning coverage to some government official, as though taxpayers and their concerns didn't even exist. But take heart, all this has happened before in history, and history has frowned on the sycophants. A few years back I was talking with a reporter who was a co-worker at the time in the mainstream press. I was just a video editor. But when I'm handed a script that's got a factual error, I do try to save the reporter from it if I can. She referred to the shocking discovery of a bullet near a creek, which of course isn't shocking, but the fact was it wasn't really even a bullet, it was a round. For those unfamiliar with firearms, bullet is a term for the lead or whatever it is that's shot out of a gun when you fire it. Round refers to the entire cartridge before the bullet is fired out of it. So it includes the case and the bullet. Together they are a round. And it was a round of ammunition that was found. Now, aside from the fact that everyone was getting their panties in a bunch over something so normal, I just let her know that she could get some flack if she referred to it as a bullet because it's not accurate. Her response was that that's what the police told her it was. Therefore, she was going to call it a bullet. Now, on its face, that's a little bit disturbing that anyone would be so subservient to police terminology. But I think it bothered me more than it would bother the average person because, again, I'm thinking in historical terms. And I'm remembering a book I read, which I think was called Sarajevo Daily. And it chronicled the changes that occurred in the Sarajevo newspaper as communism fell and the Balkan Wars began. The Sarajevo newspaper attained some fame by managing to publish every single day during the siege of Sarajevo, despite the fact that it was positioned on the front line. As the war neared and communism fell, changes and improvements began to occur in the way oslobodenje operated. In the early 80s, you would tend to see fawning, boring headlines about government meetings, and then as the 80s came to an end and the war got closer, the coverage became more and more colorful. Well, that was one improvement, but the other improvement is the one I wish my reporter colleague had made. They tended to stop blaming sources for their mistakes. Now, in the old days, the communist days, oslobodenje reporters would blame their mistakes if they had a factual error. The source was in error, not me. But that at least started to go away in the early 90s. My conversation with this reporter in the mid-2000s was a reminder it hasn't gone away yet in the United States. We're still behind oslobodenje, you could say. A newspaper operating under late communism and in wartime conditions. Most of oslobodenje's key achievements were managed after their building burned down and they were forced to stay in it anyway. Anyway, history shines on the reporters who are willing to come out from under the cloud of socialistic government and are willing to go to the dictionary for their definitions rather than to the authorities, especially when they've been warned they're wrong. There's another example of disturbing superiority that comes out of Sarajevo I think I read this in Misha Glenny's book, The Fall of Yugoslavia. He was talking about Sarajevo television in the early 90s. Again, this was pretty much after the fall of communism, but before the start of the war in Bosnia. He said Sarajevo television was a colorful mix of bigotry and open-mindedness. It had reporters from every rival ethnic group that were given a fair amount of latitude as to what they could say. So you'd see one report criticizing something that had happened in nearby Croatia, and another report taking a completely opposite view from of the same incident. And if only it could have continued on just like that. I'll take biased reporting of all kinds from all sources over the one-size-fits-all party line we seem to get from the same stream press. Hopefully liberalization is coming our way. Hopefully war isn't.
Are you planning on moving to New Hampshire for more freedom? Do you think you can make it here by autumn 2011? If so, or if maybe, drop by pledgebank.com/next1000. That's where folks are making the promise they'll be here soon. Hover your virtual pen indecisively over the sign-up button. Then, press it.
In remembrance of last liberty.
Tell the world that one more person has had enough and is joining arms with the hundreds upon hundreds who have already fled the nanny states and settled here as freedom activists. Don't delay. Time is running out to make the pledge. Next 1000.
Gratuitous.